Hi, welcome to the Purpose Exchange podcast where we have conversations that illuminate the marketplace. I am Clara Rinchuni.
And I'm Presi Kaburu.
And today we are having an interesting conversation. Presi, tell us more.
Today we're going to be talking about toxicity in the workplace. I think it's such an important conversation for people to have, to bring some light in this dark territory where so many of us have had to endure in the marketplace.
Yeah.
And I think we can define it as toxicity shows up in different ways. There are people who say it's narcissism. Some manifestations of toxicity is, a place where it's burning you out, you're being drained, a place where there's abuse in different forms, be it your productivity, be it your self-esteem, be it your worth, a place where the culture is stemming or built upon competition and not collaboration.
Yeah.
And so toxicity in the workplace has different faces, it has different names, but the umbrella that covers it all is toxicity in the workplace.
Yeah. I agree. I think sometimes, especially that different faces and how it manifests really gets us because coming from an African home, I have been trained to be useful. I remember when I was starting out my job, actually till date, my dad asks me, are you being useful? Where you are you, are you being useful, And it's not just like a job description type of thing. It's like, are you adding value?
Yeah.
And I think even with our education system, we've kind of been conditioned to not to shoulder some sense of toxicity. And that's what we call grit. It's like, I'm working hard, Like, I kind of need to see the eye bags as proof
of how useful you are.
How hardworking, how motivated, how and sometimes we measure our sense of worth with that, coming from a background where people are like, I didn't even sleep last night. I was working on the deck. And you who slept 8 hours, you're just thinking, I am a failure. I'm not serious. So I think this is such a valuable conversation to have. Definitely a conversation that I don't like having. I remember when we were talking about it, I was like, I don't want to talk about this. It was such a dark time in my career life. But from your perspective, help us draw the line. What's a healthy, challenging environment versus an environment that has a culture of burnout? What is an assertive, who is an assertive boss? Who is an abusive boss? Because I feel like there is some sense of, how in counseling we talk about high support, high challenge. There is some value in challenges, in being in situations where more is demanded out of you. But then there's like a thin line between that and abuse, or is the line clear?
Yeah. I really love that question. And I think what I would say is the first thing is, do you feel emotionally safe in that place? When you put your boundaries, when you say no to requests because you're overwhelmed, because you don't have capacity, how is that taken on board? Is it taken on board with hostility, or is it, let's relook at what is on your plate and see how we can manage it so that we're able to support you? How is feedback given? Is it given with a grain of, those things where they applaud you in public, but they are criticizing you in private, or it's like a backhanded compliment? How is the culture? Is the culture based on collaboration, or is it about competition? Do people throw people under the bus? The proverbial agency bus. Do people support one another? When you take, for example, when you put requests for leave, is it an anxiety-inducing experience because you literally have no one to leave the work for? Do you feel like Or do they make you feel like you're the savior, the all in all of this company? So those are some of the red flags. I think also it boils down to decency. How do people treat each other?
Yeah.
When you have a graduation, when you're sick, when you're going through something in the family, is it something that's people come and rally up behind you and support you, or do they brush you off and be like, to your point, you're no longer productive? Because what I've seen is cultures where rest is not nurtured and respected is definitely a red flag, where they expect you to be a machine of sorts and that you're the one who, deals with all the problems of the organization. I believe those are not cultures or workplaces that are suited for people to thrive but more survive. And most of us, we've been engineered to survive. We've not been taught, I think it's an African thing, I would say, we've not been taught to thrive. And our value, to your point, is based on hustle. How hardworking are you? What are your accolades? We don't appreciate people for who they just are, for their sense of personality, for their soft, quote unquote, soft values that they bring on board. It's sort of like, what is your output? What is your KPI? And while those are very important things, beyond that, there's more to a human being. There's more to a human being. That is what I would say. I would be curious to know if you've seen any manifestations of toxicity in your experience, 80 experience, in the marketplace.
Yes, I think so. Even as I respond to that, I think sometimes that lack of emotional safety is by design because they want you to feel, and it's a very, let me not lie, it's effective to some degree, but it's not beneficial, it's not healthy, but it works. It's just definitely if you put a human being in a position where their position is a competitive position, meaning if you don't perform, your position is at risk. You're not safe, And I remember even in hindsight, because I was reflecting on this and I'm like, you know what, Pressy? As I grow in my career and as I start getting into spaces where I'm working with people and I'm leading with people, I will always do that which was never done for me. I'll give them security. I will make you know, you'll always know where you stand with me. So if it's work, we've agreed we're going to work on this project, I'm going to commit and first start with trust. I'm going to trust you. And if you're not able to deliver for one reason or another, then we have a conversation, a real conversation where it's like, okay, I can't afford to do this if you're not pulling your weight, and we renegotiate. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But I'm not going to use manipulative tactics to make you deliver. And for what? You get. So I felt like, just to add on that, how do you know you're in a toxic place or you're in a place that is unhealthy? When you know you're there, guys, it is by design. It's by design. They know your leadership is constantly thinking about ways to make you more productive. If a system has been maintained for years, it's by design. And it works.
Yeah.
So you have to now ask yourself questions, but we'll get there. So yeah, I've been, I think, for the better part of my early career, when I was doing my internship in Campo, I don't think I was working somewhere long enough to even realize, okay, this is the culture. I just used to notice some funny things, people, things happening, but it passed me. But now when I started working at my first job, I started my job as a community manager, social media manager at an agency. And the agency culture is very volatile. And the leadership makes you know that if we lose this client, if you lose your account, because you have accounts, if you lose your account, then, now what are you here really to do? And for me at the time, I thought that's how workplaces were. I remember now thinking I just need to get a promotion. So I got a promotion and into a content manager. So my work was to plan, produce content for the different accounts that we had. And I really grew in that role. And a blessing in disguise was that role, the client I was serving primarily allowed me to travel around the country with them. So by the time I was also exposed to things that were outside agency. And then also, remember my years, I started working at 22. So 23. By 24, 23 and 24 is when I'm moving around with this organization. By the end of my 24th year, I'm starting to think forward. Some say it's an age thing. I know it's a biological thing. As you grow, as you mature, even your mind matures. So you start looking around. And I remember the culture was so... And it's the horrible people that kept being promoted.
It's always
I remember
the horrible people.
a vivid experience where I thought someone was joining the team, a lady was joining the team. And in my mind, I was thinking, yes, finally a lady who's going to be in management, who I can mentor under. And I remember that time I wanted to be a strategist. And I was like, I just need a mentor. By the way, Pressy, I was desperate for growth. That I'm not shy to say. I really wanted to grow. I wanted to learn. And the way agency is, it's an apprenticeship business. You don't go to any school to learn agency work. You learn under the best. Great system, but has its perils. And I remember the day now, the guy I was mentoring under introduced me to this new addition to the team who would be, part of the leadership. And I remember expressing my heart and like my dreams and like my desire to just support them, because my job was content, but me, I was happy to do strategy work, groundwork, to just be able to learn. Pressy, that was one of the most demeaning conversations I've ever had. It was so demeaning. I left there feeling, first, the language. There's a way you can communicate. If you're using curse words, if you're using my own, how, I present myself, how I speak is how I speak.
Yeah.
If you perceive me as weak, that's your own perception, but I can't change my voice. I can't start speaking. I can't start talking like someone else. And it was so demeaning. I remember going home, because it was on a Friday night. And there's some moments, definitive moments in your career you don't forget. I remember going home. I was so low. And I remember on Saturday morning telling my sister that I feel so worthless. I actually just want to end it all, because this is how a leader sees me. And I was really young, to be honest. And for me, I had been of the mindset of society is your mirror. And when your leader is telling you you're worthless,
You are.
now even I'm thinking, what am I doing at this? Because Monday, now this is new. And I even started thinking, because this gentleman who was there didn't say anything. He was affirming what she was. This is a lady who'd never met me before. And it's like, so all this time you've been thinking I'm worthless and I'm just stupid and I'm all the cuss. And I was like, what? Okay. And I remember then the next week, I carried this thing, by the way. And even there's a time I brought it up. And this person didn't remember. They're like, why are you so sensitive? And I was like, okay. Then I started asking myself, Clara, why are you here? You're drowning yourself in substances to cope with this workplace. And for me, the silver lining was COVID. COVID is what gave me the balls to resign. Have you ever experienced a toxic work culture?
First, we have to. Oh my gosh.
Systems, guys, systems.
That was a lot, Clara. And I'm so glad you were able to navigate that. We need to come back to how you were able to navigate that because, I mean, I relate 100% with your story. I think in my career, I would say I've seen every form of toxicity there is. And that's not a good thing. But what I would say, it's a reflection of the type of society and the type of corporate culture that has been built by the systems of this world. For me, my biggest source of grief in terms of toxicity in the workplace has actually, unfortunately, come from women. And I would really love to talk about women leadership one day, but I have two very vivid what are they called? Very, very vivid examples. I remember in an agency again. I don't know what's our agency people. We need to change. We need to do something. We're traumatizing children of God out here. I had just joined this company and my line manager was a female. It was an agency. It was brilliant. We were just pioneering digital marketing in Kenya, in Africa actually. And I was so excited. It was something new. Nobody had really understood what digital marketing was. So we were all trying to be the cool kids of the block and do awards and everything. And the lady is the one who interviewed me. We clicked. We created such a fantastic rapport. I was an account manager. So I had a couple of people reporting to me and then I was reporting to her. And what I can chop it out was insecurity because at some point, it was never based on performance. She would come and say statements like, I don't like how you dress, or I don't like, she would make statements about the car that I was driving, which was my mom's car, which happened to be a very big car. And that company would have one vehicle for everybody, for the company car, and it would go dropping people and picking them. So often than not, you'd find yourself waiting for the car for hours after a client meeting.
Yeah.
And in that meeting, I remember I had used my mom's car to go, and I was telling the team, we don't have to wait for the company car, let's just use my car. And she made it very clear that anybody who enters that car will have to reckon with her wrath. And so there was a lot of isolation in those situations. She would call for team meetings. And then when I would enter, I'd be told to step out of the room, and they would sit there for 2 hours discussing work and discussing me and discussing things. If she would go on leave, she would leave an intern in charge of me, so things that were just demeaning. And we never had a conversation that it was performance-based or and years later, when I joined another company and she had to report to me, it was like she actually had to come and say she's sorry. And she was finding herself in that time. But it was just such an unfortunate situation because similar to you, I would go home more often than not, drowned in substances to cope, wondering, what did I do wrong? What did I say? What did I do? I would be so cognizant of dressing that I would literally almost dress like a man, not to, ruffle any feathers. It was like the ultimate survival mode. And I really hated that version of myself because there was no joy, there was no peace. There was so much anxiety.
Yeah.
And it was even more anxiety inducing because the client really liked me. So, and now doing those things of covering yourself under the bus and you can't go on leave because you're so scared what will happen when you come back or what will happen when you leave. It was just a terrible, terrible time. I'm so glad that we were able to survive. And the second case was also during COVID. We were handling a brand, an international brand, and we were called for a meeting to be informed that we couldn't continue our digital marketing efforts.
Yeah.
We needed to pause because it would be insensitive to be promoting when people are actually facing a health epidemic at the time. But when I went to my social media pages, I could see
the ads
and they were not previous ads. They were fresh sets of ads being run by Global. So because I was in charge of the account, I call the client and I'm like, hey, I've just seen the new ads. Has the directive changed from our meeting? And she's like, why are you in that meeting? I was like, yeah, hence my confusion, because the directive that was issued to us is we should not continue ads, but I can see Global doing
running
new ads.
Yeah.
No, you know, like the way she spoke to me, she basically told me that I've ruined her nap. She was asleep. That it's clear that I don't listen to things in the meeting. So when I engaged her, like, what have I not listened to? She couldn't respond, and she said, I'm disturbing her peace. I'm disturbing her. And she took that opportunity to say so many things and nothing about the question that I asked. No response was given. I was told that I'm disturbing her peace. I've woken her up from her sleep and she's on leave and I should not be asking stupid questions like that. And after that, after she wrote all those things, I still asked her, so what is the directive? And she went off, and I had to call my boss at the time and be like, okay,
something has happened. Yeah,
what is happening here and how should I respond? She just told me, just say sorry to her. We don't know what's going on with her and let's just keep it pushing. But in such instances, when you take a beat and sit down and ask, reflect. And for me, I'm the type of person, I always take the blame first. I'm like, what did I do in this situation that merited this behavior? And there was no clear indication of how I, as a person, influenced the decisions or the behavior of these people. But at that time, I was not self-aware to know that it was a them issue and not a me issue. So you carry those burdens and you start shape-shifting yourself to fit the narrative of people. And you start realizing that no matter how much you shape-shift, no matter how much you change, no matter how much you try and play small, it will never be enough for the wrong people. And that's why it's so important to, I think, dealing with toxic environments is to first be self-aware. Because as human beings, we are influenced by so many things, one of them being our insecurities. And one of the things that I have seen in my career that leads to toxic environments is insecure people who don't know themselves. And so everything is competition. And to your point, the system has not been created for us to have rest and have ease. It's created to milk every single drop of productivity at the cost of your health, your family. They don't care the cost, which is so unfortunate. And it reminds me of that Bible verse that says, do not conform to the patterns of the world. We as light bearers and we as salt shakers of the earth, of the marketplace, we are called to change the system, because me and you know both, not one, not two, nor five people who've actually chosen to end their lives because of being subjected to systems like that. And it shouldn't be the case.
It shouldn't. And just on that note, I think on the point of self-awareness, first let me say you're a good person.
Thank
10
you.
over 10. Because now for me, how I responded was very different. You know how first I realized I have to survive this environment, right? And I said, kwani me, I don't have that in me. Kwani me am I a goat?
You're like fire for fire.
Fire for fire. Let me tell you, you want to play dirty, my friend. And I just used to, God, let me tell you, if Jesus can forgive me, he can forgive you too. Anyway, I think I'm very adaptive. And I think in that sense, I adapted in the negative. I overcorrected. Nili and hiyo side ingine. And let me also say that the effect of that on me was I became that person as a protective mechanism to show you that, listen, you co-authored
me.
You authored the first edition. I'll do edition 5 of the same book.
And perfect it
with new references. So, and I remember in that, my God. And yeah, Christ saves, because I was in mental slavery. I remember I used to watch series like Mad Men. I used to watch Power. I used to watch...
to get tips.
Listen, I used to read,
48 Laws of
Power. Because there's a day we were talking with my sister, and I was telling her, this is a rule book, this is a playbook. You're either on one end of the spectrum. And me, one thing I said about myself is I'm never going to be a victim. So guess what? If it means me becoming the perpetrator, if I survived, even that other person will survive. So, and I think, and that is also a mark to ask yourself, because me, I had to now do the work. You know, you can't mock God. You can't cheat the Holy Spirit. So you do your thing, but guess what? The lessons you were to learn, you'll repeat. So for me, to cope in that environment, I had to become something different, someone different. And I remember an instance where I was with a friend and the cab guy had, I don't know, just rubbed me off the wrong way. And I left the doors open. I was like, utatoka kwa hiyo cab kujifunga hizi milango. And my partner was like, who have you become? Like, you've become so unkind. Like, this is not the Gasheri I knew.
Yeah.
And that passed. But in my mind, I'm like, the Gasheri you knew cannot survive in this environment, is weak. Those things had ingeared me, Pressy. They had entered my mind. They had entered my heart. They had entered my psyche, and it had shaped my worldview that if I wasn't becoming this type of woman, I would be walked over, I would be abused. And so for me, I'm like, what do I prefer more? To be feared or to be walked over? I'd rather be feared. Who cares about friendships and allies and no. Because I think when I tasted what naivety served me, I was like, never again. So I think it's also good to highlight the flip side that sometimes there are people who can navigate that system and not be tainted, but of course your heart. And there are people who, on the flip side, you turn into the monster that you've been fighting.
I know.
And I remember even by the time I was leaving the media agency space, the work I was doing was literally rebuilding my life because I had become something I could not recognize. I had become someone whose heart was so cold, so cold, blood was not flowing. What do you mean blood? This is ice.
Stone Cold Steve Austin.
This is ice. What do you mean? And then I moved into an environment where people wanted to see my heart. What heart? The heart I locked away 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And now I have to, when that contract ended at the World Food Program, very human-centered. I'm like, what? You mean you value my humanity? The humanity I froze for economic advancement. And now I had to do the work of actually now starting. It's like I went back to 22 and started again now developing myself. And now I work in a space where it's even more human-centered, where people are like, we want to know you, we want to make you thrive, we want to... And Pressy, if I hadn't left that environment, I don't think I'd have had a good life.
Yeah.
I'd have just continued icing. And then you have a family and it's like, because you can't turn it on. Yeah.
I really love that. And from your story, what I'm getting is the intentionality of God, that he didn't even waste that experience. And that as much as you are so hardened, he still located you and softened you up and rebuilt you into such a fantastic creation, which I love so much. In fact, when you describe it, I'm like, hey, really?
I'm telling you.
But I love that mirror because
times.
When I reflect on my experiences and how I survived it, it is the polar opposite, but it was also very negative because while I can be a very confrontational person, our old man is Meru. I know we don't we don't identify with our old man, but our old man was Meru.
Yeah.
And as our old man Meru, we
Yeah.
could. I am the type of person, I hate injustice. So I will not shy away from voicing my concerns when there's injustice. But because I found myself going into a hole. And the result of going into that hole was I lost myself. I lost that spark, and I became such a resentful human being. The way I survived is that I kept quiet.
Yeah.
Or even when I spoke, because I would internalize so much and I would blame myself so much, and I would be like, it's my fault if I just did this and I did that. I lost all sense of identity of some way. I didn't retaliate in the sense that I was vulgar or I was going back and forth, because I really wanted to be that person. You see the way you turned. I really wanted to be. I remember I used to tell God, give me a hard heart. I want a rock. But for the life of me, I just couldn't. And so what I found was I was going through a lot of empathy abuse. I was the understanding girlfriend. That title was from way back. I was always understanding of maybe exactly. But I found myself not authentically empathizing, because deep down I was so resentful, and deep down I wanted vengeance on you. Like I wanted you exposed, and I would relish in your downfall. So my coping was also not negative, in that as much as I didn't verbally, or I didn't transform to become a hardened person, there was a hardening in me, because I felt so abused by understanding all this abuse that was being done to me. And then I became sort of like a shell. I stopped voicing things. I stopped raising my concerns, and then I just became so resentful. And I'm grateful that God didn't allow me to change to that person, because knowing myself, when I get to that extreme person, there's no coming back. And so I worked so hard not to become that person, even though I wanted. There was just something that kept me guarded, in that if you cross this border, there's no coming back. And I knew the type of person I can be when I cross that line. It would be so hard to bring me back. It would be, because I was the type of person that I could call people on you. You know, I could call people on you. I could organize situations.
Unfortunate situations.
And I would not feel anything, but something would keep me guarded, like, don't get there. So, because I felt so grieved, I became so resentful. And I had to get to the point where those skills had to fall. That pretense, that understandingness, that was not really understanding. It was just me trying to keep the peace, but in a very negative way. It had to fall. And, going through therapy and becoming a counselor and creating sense of boundaries, because I realized the biggest thing with toxicity is that you also don't have boundaries, which are so important to guard you. Yeah, so it's so interesting to see the mirror opposites. But in all this, I see the redemption work of the Lord in our lives, because I was carrying burdens. Like I remember, if there was a Psalms that I used to quote, is it Psalms 35? Lord, they shall not have children in the generation. And that's what bitterness that. I didn't even have God like that. I still knew that I still had some consciousness, but I wouldn't even say that I was like walking with Christ like that. But there was so much resentment in my heart. Like I would, hey, I hear you've been fired. Hey, party at my house. Party at my house. And I was those ones for those WhatsApp group giving them nicknames. And, it was also just a very negative way. But thank you, Jesus, for saving us. Yeah.
Right. And I think, thank you for taking us through that first part of the conversation, because I do think that even for the audience, as we are speaking, your memory is active. Your memory, melamba glucose, your memory has been reactivated. And I think at this point, I'll invite each one of you, let us know, have you had similar experiences? And if you don't want your boss to see this,
use anonymous.
It's safe. You can send us emails. You can send us DMs on our platforms, and we'll definitely walk this journey together.
Yeah.
And then the second part that I want us to go into is now action. Now we've talked about the situation, we know what's happening. Just let's take a break to inhale and exhale. For those in the audience, drink some water, some tea. If you can have chamomile tea, let's just,
Busa.
We're
Take a
alive. Yeah.
And appreciate we survived trauma.
We survived.
We
So if
survived
you're
trauma.
watching this, you've survived. You are good. You have life in you. And guess what? You have choices. Nothing in this world can take away the gift of will of choice, regardless of where you are. So as we take this short but sweet, hopefully, break, just take a moment to release that which this has inspired. If you need to release it through a DM, through drinking water, jumping jacks, I don't know what your thing is, crying, and we'll be back with part 2 of this episode.